But let's
Well,
switch.
speaking of the NBA.
Yes, let's talk about the NBA. And we talked about it with Eddie House a little earlier about the Celtics putting a can of whoop ass on the Phoenix Suns, the two teams with the two best records.
Rob,
right?
they were up by 45 points in the third quarter.
I mean, that's just ridiculous, okay? Absolutely ridiculous. But I've said this for a while, and I'm gonna stick with this. I remember when Kyrie came out and said we don't really need a coach, and everybody jumped down his throat and, trashed him. This is when Steve Nash was coaching the Nets. I think you need coaches in certain situations, but I think what we've seen from the Boston Celtics is an example of you got to have players. Would you agree with that? Like
1,000%.
You got to have players. Like have we heard from Popovich in the last 8 years?
No. No.
Is he not a genius anymore, or what's happened?
I guess not, apparently. Because I was told he was the greatest coach in NBA history. And now that Tim Duncan and Kawhi Leonard aren't there anymore, now they're in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes all of a sudden.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean that, you can't blow it or a coach can't make a mistake or do something. You know what I mean? Like, I think, in football is number one. You need a coach.
Right.
That's why I was against the Jeff Saturday thing.
Right.
Like, I really believe you need, like, a coach with a game plan. What kind of team are you, right? Are
What's
you
your
3-4?
identity?
Are you 4-3?
Yep.
Like, are you going to use a personnel the right way?
Are you a running team? Are you a play action team? Are you a spread team?
Right.
What works? What fits your personnel? What doesn't? Yep, I get it.
And then in baseball, it's still you got to have players, but there's a few times when the manager comes, but not that much, right? It's still about can you hit? Can your reliever close the door in the ninth inning? You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff like that. But when it comes to basketball, it's always been a players' league. And you say, well, Phil Jackson's a great player. Yeah, Phil Jackson, a great coach. He also had 4 of the greatest players who ever played in the league.
1,000%.
And he won a championship with the Knicks, who haven't won anything since 1973. I would be like, Phil Jackson can coach his ass off, right?
Yep.
But you can't say that. And look at the Celtics. Who knew this guy, Mazzulla?
Mazzulla.
Who knew? I have mozzarella on my pizza, but I don't know what Mazzulla is.
Missoula, Montana is the only Missoula I know.
And Mazzulla and this team, have they missed a beat since Udoka was suspended for the year?
No, not even have they not missed a beat.
They're better.
They're better. And they're like, as Eddie House said, they're doing it without their starting center, Robert Williams. Rob, just to put into perspective how good that they have been, okay? The Celtics coming into Wednesday night's game. So this was before, I'm sure it's gone up since then, given how much of a whoop ass they put on the Suns. Have the greatest offense in NBA history with an offensive rating of 119.9. They're 5th in open threes generated per game, 6th in wide open generated per game. They're one of 3 teams attempting over 40% of their field goals from 3, and yet they lead the league in made threes and efficiency, shooting over 40%. And this is a team that last season was known for defense. So their defense, which is kind of lagging behind, so to speak, they're only, middle of the road, but they have the greatest offense ever. Better than Steph and KD and those teams. Better than, Rob, stop pointing out Baker Mayfield completing a 12-yard pass and the guy runs another 7. But, look, to your point, it's not just that they're, staying above water. They put a rocket launcher behind their boat, and they're in a totally different strategy.
That's what I'm saying. It's like Udoka, was he ever the coach? No, really. Like, that's how unbelievable they've been.
Yep.
Do you need a coach, Rob G? Like, how important is the coach in the NBA? Or is it that if you have the horses, it doesn't matter?
I lean the latter. And the biggest example of this is Luke Walton. Luke Walton, when he had those Golden State Warriors in their heyday, because remember, Steve Kerr had to sit out games with a bad back. led them to a record that is not on his own record. It goes to Steve Kerr because Steve Kerr was technically still the head coach. 39-4. He gets to the Lakers and the Kings, and he can't coach his way out of a brown paper bag. He gets let go, almost as soon as LeBron gets there. He lasts a season, and then Magic Johnson had a big old issue with Jeannie Buss. That's how bad he wanted to fire him because he was that bad of a coach.
Right, but when he took over the Warriors, he was
awesome because they got Stephen Clay and Draymond Green. I think the only thing that I'll say as a pushback to that is the coaching is not as important when the leadership in place on the team is not like super inflated egos. And that's what the Warriors had with Steph and Clay. That's what the Celtics have with Tatum and Brown. That's where the Lakers had a problem. That's why they needed a Phil Jackson, because between Shaq and Kobe, their egos wouldn't allow them to just play basketball. No, it was something bigger.
I get that, but ultimately it still comes down to talent.
Right.
And if you have talent, almost anybody can coach. Almost.
Yes.
Almost. I'm not saying anybody, or you don't have to have a coach at all.
Except Doc Rivers.
Yeah, plenty of talent. Yeah, definitely not cool with the talent that he had.